Hello folks, the most exciting part of Remix is for many the power acquisition, as it offers an opportunity to go all the way from a newly minted level 1 character doing probably 10 DPS to being able to solo mythic raids and even mythic plus 30 keys. Getting to those heights isn't going to happen in your first hours of play though, so in this video I'm going to take a look at exactly how the player power acquisition works in Legion Remix. The centerpiece of Legion Remix, just as with the original Legion expansion, is the Artefact Weapon, and yes, it is making a return, albeit with some pretty major changes. As with Legion, each character will get a separate Artefact Weapon for every specialization, and indeed, appearance-wise, it's exactly the same as the original Legion artifacts, but that's where the similarities both begin and end. Your first Artefact Weapon will be obtained as part of the new Legion Remix introductory questline. Weirdly, we then do go off and do the original Legion Artifact questline as well to get a second copy, which we can then scrap to add power to a brand new weapon. And if you also want the weapons for your off-specs, these can be obtained via the original Legion questlines as well. One thing that is missing from Remix is the artifact appearance system, so you're going to be stuck with just your standard weapons appearance. You will still be able to collect the old artifact appearances, with the exception of the Mage Tower ones, but they can only be used on your non-Remix alt. The biggest change to your artifact weapon though is in the artifact trait tree. The original weapon-specific trees have been removed and replaced with a single shared trait tree that applies to all of your weapons, meaning that all classes and specializations are going to have exactly the same traits available to them. The very first trait that you'll get is called Remix Time, and this is one of 2 active abilities, and it increases the recovery time of your character's cooldowns by 1000% for 3 seconds. After that, the next 3 increase your primary stat, stamina and movement speed before you go on to hit Nost Winds and Patience, which will increase your non-flying speed by up to 60%. After this, you do get a bit of a choice in what traits you can pick up next, depending if you want to rush to your chosen tree in the midsection or fill out this first section entirely. Throughout all of the trees, the minor nodes again will give you various combinations of primary stat, stamina and movement speed. As for the major trait, Momentous Perseverance increases health regen by 300% out of combat. Eternis's Ambition generates 20% of your class resource on entering combat. This is a 10-second cooldown. Moratorius's Calculation gives you 99% fallen damage reduction, and if you do fall from a great height, you can do damage to nearby NPCs, and it will then give you a 20% healing and damage buff. And Eris's Aggression gives you a 30% increase to your damage from your first attack, and extends that movement speed buff from Nost Winds and Patience into the first 4 seconds of combat. The middle section offers you a choice of 1 out of 5 artifact ability trees. You will be able to respec these at any time out of combat, so you're not locked in if you don't like your first choice. Each of these trees offers an active artifact ability followed by 3 major traits, all of which have 3 ranks each, and then a final 1 rank capstone trait, which again are separated by more of those primary stat, stamina and speed buffs. The top tree is the nature tree and gives you Call of the Forest, which summons a bunch of forest denizens that stampede forwards, doing nature damage and immobilizing your enemies for 2 seconds. And for the passive traits, Souls of the Claw summons flocks of spirit eagles to do damage. High Mountain Fortitude gives you an Absorb Shield, Waken Frenzy, a stacking damage and healing buff, and Dream Weaving gives you a group-wide buff to reduce cooldowns and speed up class resource recovery. Next up is the Fel Tree, and Twisted Crusade calls up a Subjugated Infernal Dreadlord for 30 seconds, which does a bunch of AoE damage to your enemies. This is followed by Touch of Malice, debuffing your target, causing them to do AoE burst damage. I Am My Scars, which adds a stacking dot. Call of the Legion, which empowers your critical strikes and summons another demon to help you. And Fel Spike, which essentially causes your Dreadlord to explode on your enemies, debuffing them even more. The middle tree is the Arcane Tree and gives you Naren's Everdisk, which throws out a disc of arcane energy which does damage to your enemies and which you can catch on its way back to throw it out again up to 2 times for even more damage. The major talents for Arcane include Volatile Magics, which causes your critical strikes to do AoE burst damage. And the second node here is a choice node, allowing you to choose between Arcane Aegis, causing you to get an absorb shield by walking backwards, but at the cost of also slowing you down, or Arcane Ward, which gives you an absorb shield if you stand still. After that, you get Temporal Retaliation, which causes any damage that you absorb to be reflected back, along with reducing your enemy's attack speed. And finally, Arcane Inspiration, where whenever you catch your Everdisk, it will apply an absorb shield onto both you and up to 4 of your allies. Next up is the Storm Tree. Tempest Wrath is the active ability and does AoE damage over time to your enemies, with the damage getting buffed the more enemies you manage to hit with it. Then the first major talent is Terror from Below, which is basically another AoE damage effect, and that is followed by another choice node. Storm Surger allows you to move while casting and does AoE damage as you do move. Or you can choose Brewing Storm, which also allows movement while casting, but where standing still will allow you to build stack of Brewing Storm, which when you move you can release to do AoE damage. And the third talent is Thunderstruck, which gives you 3% haste and 5% movement speed for every enemy is hit by your Tempest Wrath. And finally, you get Churning Waters, which causes an orb to appear nearby that you can collect to extend your Tempest Wrath. And the final tree is the Holy ability with Vindicator's Judgment, which calls down a beam of heavenly light, doing AoE damage and healing your allies, at the same time as empowering your other holy trait. That's followed by the first major talent, Light's Vengeance, which is a proc which heals injured allies and damages enemies around you within 6 yards. That's followed on by Flight of the Valkyr, where using your Vindicator's Judgment will bless your allies, giving them a cheat death for 8 seconds. However, it is worth bearing in mind that this does have an 8-minute cooldown if that cheat death is activated. Following on from that is Zira's Embrace, giving you an 80% damage reduction triggered when you hit 40% health on a 1.5 minute cooldown. And finally, Imperial Orders. When you use your Vindicator's Judgment, you will rush forwards, doing damage to any enemies in your path, after which you'll step into a beam of light to do even more damage and healing as you get teleported backwards by 20 yards. And after all of this, you'll release motes over 3 seconds, which you can touch to do even more damage or healing. That last talent in this tree does sound kinda crazy to me for sure. And the final right hand section in the talent tree is called Limits Unbound. And this is essentially the remix version of the old Conclave of the Legion Falls infinite power trait. You can only start selecting this trait once you've fully filled out both section 1 and your chosen artifact tree, but it does have 999 ranks, each of which grants you primary stat, stamina, and a 1% versatility buff. We did get to test the full 999 on the PTR, where it was possible to solo mythic raids and even plus 20 keys, so this trait will eventually end up being quite a big deal in Remix. That said, this does require 50,000 infinite power per level, more than that shortly, so do not expect to be doing this in week 1 or 2 of Remix. Now, the first question that I will bet that most of you are asking is what tree is best. The easy cop-out answer, of course, is that it will depend on your class and specialization, so go check your class Discord. And for sure, I do recommend checking in on that, as there probably will be some odd outliers. But I suspect that for most DPS, The preferred tree is going to be the Fel one, due to its focus and passive DPS. That said, for caster DPS, I do feel that the Storm tree could be very good for open world content and high movement raid fights, due to the Storm Surge talent enabling casting when moving. And for tanks and healers who want to do very high-end content, especially solo, the Holy Tree's cheat deaths and absorb shield might well be worth a loot early on. Though I personally suspect that once you start to max out your power and don't need so much healing or shields, you'll probably also want to switch to the Fel Tree for that extra juicy damage. The other big question, of course, is how do I unlock these traits? The artifact traits will be unlocked using a brand new currency called infinite power. This is basically similar to the original artifact power and drops from pretty much all content in the game, including looting from NPCs, opening the cache of infinite treasure, chests that you earn from quests, open world treasures, flying through bronze orbs, and flying through demons in the Broken Isles. But on top of that, harder content will be dropping fragmented mementos of epoch challenges, and combining 100 of those will give you a lot more infinite power than you'll get from any of the other sources. In addition to all of that, the gear scrapper from Mists of Pandaria remix is also making a return, and scrapping the gear you don't want will grant you both bronze and that all-important infinite power. Now, that infinite power that you do earn, as well as being used to unlock your artifact traits, will also grant you additional primary stat and stamina via the infinite power buff. Unlike Mists of Pandaria Remix, this buff does not offer you any secondary stats, so there's no equivalent to Mop Remix's threads to collect, but it does still allow you to accumulate an XP buff. You'll get two 10% XP buffs during the introductory quest, along with two more at levels 40 and 80. On top of that, at level 70, you'll be granted a 250% XP buff, and you'll also be able to collect resonant epoch moments, which have a chance to drop from the daily infinite research quests and which can award 1% XP each. And you can also collect resonant epoch moments which have a chance to drop from the daily infinite research quests and which award an additional 1% XP gain. As well as infinite power, you can also obtain infinite knowledge from doing specific achievements. These grant you a stacking buff to the amount of infinite power that you'll gain from all sources. It has 36 ranks, with each rank offering a 20% increase in your infinite knowledge gains. Sources of this include reaching certain milestones in your infinite power collection, completing the zone storylines, dungeons, raids, doing world quests, legion assaults, and invasion points. Now, the original artifact relics, which were used back in Legion to increase the item level of your weapon, have been replaced with a brand new system called Artefactum Sand. This basically has a chance to drop from all the same sources as bronze, albeit at a much lower rate, and these can be used to bump up the item level all the way potentially to 740. And that's it for your artifact weapon, but what about gearing up? Well, unlike Mists of Pandaria Remix, gear in Legion Remix is not upgradable. Instead, gear drops will have fixed item levels, which initially, as you would expect, will scale with your level, capping out at max level at between 571 and 584 depending on the item quality. However, once you do hit max level, the epic gear will then start scaling with your item level, potentially all of the way up to item level 740. As you might imagine, the epic gear isn't as available as green and blue quality gear, and it's only available from the Infinite Research daily quests, Legion raids, or by combining 10 motes of broken time, which can drop from most Legion activities. For Mythic Plus, the gear is a little bit different, as the gear's level will be determined by the key level that you do, and this currently caps out at 681 for Mythic Plus 40. My personal guess is that this will probably be changed before the event goes live, either to make the plus 40 gear start scaling with the item level, or perhaps to add some higher tiers. In Legion Remix, most gear is going to have secondary stats. However, the stats are going to be fixed based on the slot, with helms, shoulders and cloaks granting mastery, chest, wrists and glove crit, and belts, legs, and boots haste. And yes, that does mean that each item only has a single secondary stat. Versatility, on the other hand, isn't available from gear, as it's only available via that artifact trait. One thing to keep in mind is that the normal diminishing returns and 126% stat cap does not apply to Remix, so you will be able to potentially stack some of your secondary stats up to extremely high levels. And also, unlike Mists Remix, rings, trinkets and necks are going to be available from all content, not just higher level sources, albeit in my experience of testing, the drop rates were a lot lower than other slots, meaning that it will probably still likely take you quite a while before you see any of them during leveling. Instead of granting you secondary stats, each jewellery item is going to have a special effect that will grant you extra ranks from the various major talents from your artifact tree. The talents that you get depend on the item that you receive and do not require you to have unlocked that particular talent's talent tree row, meaning that you will eventually be able to start unlocking traits from more than one of the artifact trees. And if you do happen to get an effect from an already unlocked trait, this will then increase the ranks of that trait. And yes, that does mean that it can scale them beyond the max rank that is in the tree itself. So for example, if you've already maxed out your rank 3 Touch of Malice trait, and you get an item offering an additional 3 ranks, it will push it up to 6 ranks. And that's it for how the power progression in Legion Remix will work. Now, while there is no doubt that maxing out your gear and Artefact Weapon will make you insanely overpowered, getting there is going to take some time and be very dependent on how hard you go at Legion. If you're looking forwards to soloing high Mythic Plus and raids, that's realistically probably not going to become a thing until perhaps around Phase 3 or even later for most players. That said, the raids do have a daily lockout, so you will be able to hard farm the power if you want it, and I would not be surprised if some people do still manage to hit 740 item level even in Phase 1. Now, if you're a much more casual player, thanks to the new Heroic World tier and the daily Infinite research quest, and those higher levels of power will still eventually be accessible to you no matter what your playstyle, and yes, that means even solo players. And in later phases, you will eventually be able to speed up your initially much slower progress by starting to solo Mythic Plus and raids if you want to. I'd be super interested to hear what your plans are for powering up in Legion Remix. Will you be farming raids with your guildies, or are you planning to dip into the Heroic World tier? Let me know down below. If you found this update helpful, entertaining, or even just plain annoying, then let me know by hitting that like icon. And if you want to support my channel to grow and help me to make more of these videos along with my other content, then hit that subscribe button right now before you forget. And if you don't want to miss out whenever I release a new video, then as well as subscribing, you can follow me on social media for updates. My link's in the description below as well. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.